Okay. Okay, I think we're okay, probably most people. Because there's not too many people have submitted to part 2, because you can see that part 2's size is a lot smaller from the log file. Let me actually see that. Two. Okay, I think it's fine. Okay. Successful. Okay. This was, yeah, this morning, 4 o'clock. Okay. Okay. So so anybody want me to go over very quickly about part 1, or I can directly talk about part 2?
No, part 1 is okay.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about part 2. Let me.
Wait, I have a quick, like, super general question about part 2 before you go into it.
Sure, go ahead.
Hold on. So in the .h transaction and person, yeah, you define the interface, and then so for example, in class transaction, under the private, for example, you have like person and then tr sender, tr receiver, and all that. And then if we go over to transaction PPP, so in like most of these functions that in the CPP files that you kind of laid out for us, so is the main thing that we're doing just taking the arguments that are being passed into the functions and assigning them to the variables that you define for us in the .h files? Is that like the main thing we're doing? Would you say yeah or no?
That's
Or
only
that is
for the
just part of it?
constructor part. For the constructor part, it's
Okay.
probably like that, but not necessary
Okay.
for other function.
Okay.
So let me go over this with you very quickly. I just want to look for the. Let me go to. Okay, let's use person.cpp as an example. Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So for example, this one is a constructor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So constructor should be really simple. Okay. And this part I probably forgot to remove. This is just an example that what I did for this one. Okay. And wait a minute. I forgot to remove this. Wait a minute. This is, did I send the wrong thing to you guys? Oh, no. This is fine. This is fine. Okay. So I probably should remove more, but I probably forgot to remove a few things. So this is constructor. So that's as you said, it's very simple. And this one I actually have it there, right? So you can see that it's just putting the value into the local variable, right? And
Yeah.
this is the same thing. This is like obtain the local variable. That might be very simple. But this part will be more complicated. For example, this function is a big one. This
Yeah.
function is a big one. Is basically calculating if you have a 2 GPS address, and how do you actually be able to compute the distance between these two. So this will be
Yeah.
a
If I
major
do that
one.
one,
And I said, well, you
would
can
just
actually got this piece of code from another place. Okay, so that's one thing. But then there's another part, this part. Okay, if you have a GPS, this is also, this is not a constructor. This is a member function called distance. And it's compare two GPS position and then try to calculate their difference and return that difference as a double. So that is a function which is probably the one that you need to do that carefully in order to compute things correctly. How do you do that? That's the, I mean, that of course is utilizing this function. That's why I have this function here. And this will be calling this function and then to implement this. Okay, so between here and here, maybe, I'm not saying you need to get really a lot of code you need to write, because given that you can potentially just using this piece of code that developed by other there, but together you want to make sure that this code will be integrated into your C++, and it will work exactly as we expect. Okay, and again, sorry. And for example, this IP address, this is constructor, this is constructor, that's easy. This part is not constructor, but it shouldn't be too hard.
Professor?
And this one is also, sorry, this is not a constructor, this is not a constructor, but it's providing a functionality, and you have to figure out how to get the IP address string and IP address value. All right, and then we go for a person, and this our constructor, and this part is just some method. And this one is also some method. Usually is a get and set is similar to constructor kind of situation. And this part is actually something which is could be interesting. I want you to implement the overload the operator equal, which is how do you actually do that? Yeah, that's basically where we're asking you to do.
For the operator overloading, should we be comparing the person's name or the visual ID, or both?
Okay, it should be I think the main thing is comparing only the VSID.
Okay.
The name, because people could potentially have a multiple name. Because especially, I think right now we can only get name, but this is not only set name. But I think I didn't specify. Let me try to bring my own code. Hold on for 1 second. Let me actually get this piece. No, I didn't actually call that overload operator here, but I might call it in another program. I'm going to test your hand in. I think the way I test it is just test your VSID, because I know people could potentially have multiple name if they actually can change that. But the VSID should always be unique. Therefore, the definition of my equal at this moment is, at least for homework assignment number 2, is going to just test the VSID.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Professor?
Sure.
For the first constructor in the person's file, the GPS_DD, I was wondering, like, what should we write in the constructor, because we are assigning everything to the local variables in the following function. If you could give some hints.
Let me think about this. Okay. So I try to get back to the, okay, here, this one, right? You're talking about this one, right?
Yes.
Is this the constructor you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting that if you saw my video that actually I'm uploading right now, I talk about a concept. It's another story. I won't repeat, but it's let me see how many percentage. It's pretty big actually. I was trying to upload 66%. This has been a long process for me to very slowly update. But it has a concept called, let me actually bring my, this is the next lecture, but I want to bring the previous lecture. Let me just show you something which is very quickly. 4. Sorry, go down to talk about constructor. Ah, here. Is this the constructor? No, this one. Ah, here. So, so for the constructor, there's a few constructor which we will talk in the lecture. You will see very quickly. It talk about 3 different kind of constructor. One is called default constructor, one is called copy constructor, one is called move constructor. So the constructor you actually see is what we call default constructor. The default constructor basically take no argument. And that constructor, in fact, is by the, if you're having an implicit declare. By the way, if your code, you do not have this code, if I remove this part, then this will be supplied by the compiler. The compiler is going to generate a default compiler. Looks like this, but inside the compiler is not doing anything. Means that it just basically, because you don't have any argument provided to this constructor, so I'm not going to do anything for this constructor. Okay, so that's the default constructor that have that. However, I want you to implement the default constructor for a very important reason. So for GPSDD, it's probably okay because you can just not doing anything or just set the latitude and longitude to be 0 or some kind of default value. That's your choice. I don't have a problem with that. But I do have a very important thing for you to do the person as a default constructor. And the reason for this is that, let me actually go back to my person.cpp. You can see that your GPS, this is your definition for GPS, right? And for IP address, you have this. But for your class person, you have a static unsigned variable. If you remember, this is called static variable that's actually binded to the class, not to particular object. Whenever a class member is a static, means that that variable is assigned to the class, it's not assigned to the object. And therefore, what it means that anybody, I'm using this to count how many person object I have created. So if I use default constructor, like what we talk about in this case, if we use default constructor, then basically it does nothing. The default does nothing. And therefore, it won't increase the count. But so which in this homework, if you're doing for IP address or for GPS DD, it's okay. The default constructor could be very simple or even nothing. That's okay. But for your person, that the default constructor, oh, wait a minute. What did I do? I hate this. Yeah. For your person, your default constructor need to have something which is that to actually handle this particular static variable called person underscore count. Do you see the difference between the example I just showed you?
Yeah, it was very helpful.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And if you listen to my next lecture, which is not this one is the inheritance. This is for tomorrow. But this is the lecture I haven't loaded. It's about constructor. I spend a lot of time talk about constructor and the destructor and this kind of 3 different kind of constructor: default, copy constructor, and move constructor. Yeah. Let me just check how many percent I have uploaded. 75. Okay. Yeah, it's a huge file. It's like a few gigabyte of file when I upload to my channel. Okay, any other question? Okay, so should I go to homework 2, right? So I think somebody asked question about homework 2. So I mean, that was part of homework 2 as well. Where's my homework 2 assignment? Okay, so part 1, I think you guys are okay. So homework 2. Okay, homework 2 is really this part. Okay, I guess I already covered some of that. That this file, make sure that, I mean, the high level description of homework 2 is make sure that you got the 6 file compiled together and you can run this line. And you can run this line. And after you run this line, it's important that you actually got the successful JSON. And also you handle the static class variable, like a person count and transaction count correctly. And also I want you to make sure that the overloading operator is done correctly. And that's the thing I want you to make sure, okay? So that's a high level. I just wonder any part of this is unclear to any of you? Or any specific question you'd like to share so we can discuss?
I'm actually stuck on part 1.
Okay, sure.
I keep getting the greater than symbol or like an error. Well, it's not an error, but it says that the ECS36B client, there's no file or directory found when I try to do like follow the demo that you made.
Oh,
I
wait a
get those
minute.
kind of
You're
errors.
doing part 1. So let's try to Jenny. Let's look at part 1. So when you say you got a greater than, what do you mean you got a greater than or less than arrows?
The greater than symbol, it's like an arrow. It's
Hold
like
on. Do you think
symbol.
you can send the output of your file or the arrow message through the chat?
Yeah, I just did.
Okay, let me go over there and see what happened. Where's that? I didn't see it. Are you seeing your own chat?
Yeah,
But did you send to me or send to? You see that
everyone.
I'm presenting the Zoom group chat. Oh, you're
I'm doing it on my phone, so I can't see the screen share and chat at the same time.
okay.
I
Yeah,
got the message.
But did you
It
get a
says-
message? Why I didn't get my message?
Like
I
can see
can
it,
try
but it says
sending it to you specifically.
Sorry, who actually saw Jenny's message?
No, I see it. It says sent to everyone.
Right.
Yeah, I also see it. It's the
But
greater than symbol.
okay. But why I couldn't see it? You saw my share screen. I didn't see that.
Well, I have no idea.
Okay. All right. So can you tell
Oh,
me
there's
what
a
you
function.
what exactly Jenny was talking about? Some reason I cannot see it. Interesting.
I think for sending messages, there's an option to everyone, and then there's also an option directly to you. Maybe she can
Okay.
try that.
Okay. So maybe no, I couldn't see it. I mean the screen, the message is messed up. Okay. Hey Jenny, I'm sorry about that. Let me ask you this more specifically. So number one, the first question I want to ask you, which client program you're using to do homework assignment number 2, part 1?
I just re-downloaded the homework 1 file
Okay, yeah,
and
that's fine. So you use homework 1 client file, right?
yeah,
And then the first argument after that executable file, assuming you're using EC36B homework 1 underscore client, the first argument after that is should be the IP address, right?
yes.
And the second
Um
one
I
should be,
just I
go ahead.
just used the folder, like the folder is just called ECS36B underscore homework 1, and then the files inside is just like the socket client and socket server makefile
Right,
and
that's fine. No, but you compile that program correctly, right?
yeah.
You can run the
Do I have
program.
to do the make command again?
I mean, as long as you can generate an executable, as long as you can run the program, it should be okay. All right. So
How
so
do I know that I can run a program?
so I want to know, is that so? You say you're using phone. You're not using screen, right? Not using your
Yeah,
desktop. Yeah,
yeah.
that's why it's hard for me to see. So you already compiled the program successfully? You haven't compiled the program successfully? That's my first question.
I don't think I have.
So then you have to use make. If you download the program, you just type make.
Okay, I did that.
And then you should, your program, if you actually download from homework assignment number 1, then that make will actually get you a executable. And you should be, and you were using that executable already?
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you see when you use that executable? What was the message you saw?
When I do like the command that you
Mm-hmm.
wrote in homework 2,
Right.
I got the greater than symbol.
And nothing else, just greater than symbol.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I know what happened. If you got a greater than symbol, that means you're missing one of the parentheses. Let me actually tell you why. I mean, the reason you got it is nothing to do with the program. It has to do with your shell. So the shell command
Okay.
is trying to take the whole thing. Okay, let me tell you that this is happening. Let me try to reproduce something similar to what you have, okay? Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm actually going to run the program, you see 36 B H2 client. Okay, I'm getting this program. Now I'm going to do this, okay? If I do A, B, C, D, E, you see that? I got a greater than symbol. You see what I did?
Yeah.
I basically type in and then I put a double quote. but double quote always come in pairs. And before I enter the next double quote, I hit the return key. And this is what I'm going to get. If I put another double quote, it will finish. Okay.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So if you see this, or this not necessarily happening in double quote, could happen in single quote as well.
Actually, when I did what you did, like typed in /ECS36B underscore homework 2 underscore client,
Mm-hmm.
it says bash no such file or directory.
Okay, which means that you haven't created that file. So if you do a ls, do you see that? You see, I do a ls, the file is here, right? If for example, if I do this, if I do /b homework 2 client, and I just change this to homework 1, and it will say bash no such file directory. So which means that the name that you provide mismatch with the executable that you have in the same directory. So that is why you got this no such file bash. Okay, can you check on that? Make sure that whatever executable name you provide match with what you have in ls. If it match,
Okay.
then you shouldn't get this error saying that batch that no such file directory. Can you try that now?
Yeah.
What did you get? Now,
But it still didn't work.
it's give you the same thing? You do it.
I can show you on my
You
screen.
can show you okay, that would be great. Let me actually just stop sharing. Let me stop sharing, and then I will let other people share the screen. Oh no! Oh, okay. Okay, that's
I can't
interesting.
do screen share.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now I can see your screen. Okay. Oh, you haven't compiled your program. See, you have your file, right? Socket client, homework 2, socket. Can you type make? Can you type make? Okay. So okay, you saw that after you download, you change the file to be socket client homework 2 and socket client server homework 2, but your make file still says socket server homework 1.c. So you have a two choice. One is you go to your make file to change your make file, or you actually change the name of your socket client homework 2.c to homework 1.c. Can you do a more on make file? You do a more on make file, more and then space make file. Yes. Okay, hit enter. You see that everything here in this 3 line, it all says homework 1, right? So you either change the make file, change that homework 1, everything, everywhere you say HW1, you change to HW2, then you can use whatever the file you have to get it compiled. Right now, you cannot get it compiled. It's because of that. Okay.
Okay. So
I
just
suggest you try
make it.
to do that. Yeah, you can just simply change that to homework 1. That might be easier. Yeah, change that to 1. Yeah, change that to 1. Now you can type, just hit the Q and then type make again. Okay, now it's compiled. Now you can SQ /ECS36B HW1 underscore client. Okay, you see, now you're in business. You have IP address, port number, and the whatever. It says SID, but you need to enter JSON. Now you can follow the tutorial last time on the I share on Zoom, and then you should be able to try a few things. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. All right. Let me charge my battery. Okay. Any other question? Oh, almost done. Yeah, for those of you who are here, you're probably the first one to see that it's 100%. Why is 95% process? I don't understand. Still pending. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, while we're waiting, any question from anybody?
No, I'm good. I think I'm just gonna start working on the homework now. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Oh, I just saw this one here, so I just want
I
to.
get in like the bash /ECS36B homework 2 client, no such file or directory
No, you do
as a result.
ECS36B homework 1 client because your executable is homework 1 client.
Okay.
Yeah, if you do homework 1 client, that's fine. I mean, they're the same executable. You can rename that. If you want to type homework 2 client, you should change the name of homework 1 client to homework 2 client.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, let me see how I should name this video. Okay, I'm doing engineering. Here, I want to copy this one. Okay, I'm doing some editing. Oh, no. I want to save this. How do I save this? Oh, I have to save here. Okay, I want to change this one to change to 4. Save that. Okay.
Professor, I had a
Yes, I'm
question.
here.
Yeah, so like in the code which you have given us, there's like one line where inside like the brackets where the function is sort of declared, it is written void asterisk. So what does that mean? I was wondering.
Okay. Let me go to the.
It's in like transaction.h, like the 33rd line.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I just want to bring the code. This one, right? Transaction, you're talking about this one, right? This line here.
No, like below, still down, like at the end. Yeah, like the void set data one.
Right. Okay.
This aspect.
Right. So this transaction, I mean, besides all this element, I actually reserve a particular attribute called data, TR data, right?
Yeah.
See this line is called TR data. And
Yeah.
TR data is a generic, what I call a generic pointer. So first we have to understand the meaning of void star. So void star is in C syntax is a pointer. But usually the pointer could point to a string or point to a character or point to an object. And therefore it's specific for a particular type. But I want to implement a transaction concept, which is a generic. It could mean transaction of anything. Could be a fly, could be a financial transaction. Sorry, it's a financial transaction or any kind of transaction. Therefore, I don't want to bind myself to a particular type at this moment. Because by the way, the class transaction will be inherited by others. So void star here is just a generic, it's a way to represent, it's a pointer, but it's a generic pointer. And therefore, I will allow people to set this data, right? It's like this is the one part which I want to attach something, which is I want to utilize the transaction template, but I want to attach any kind of data that I want. And that's why I have this two function here, one called set, one called get. So set is essentially just copy the argument void star, this pointer to this variable. And get data is get the value of this particular pointer. That's why the return value of get data is void star. And the input argument for set data is void star. And the private variable, the type is void star. So I'm using void star in all the three lines to provide a template for generic data to be attached, to be processed by the object transaction. Is that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Let me just. Okay. Now I can. I just want to make sure that the video looks okay. This is the newest one. Okay, so it looks good. So I'm going to share on Facebook and assignment.
Professor, I had a question.
Sure, go ahead.
How can we test that we implemented like person count and the operator overloading correctly? Because when you submit it to the server, it doesn't give you any messages about that.
Hold on 1 second. Let me put this up and then I'll answer your question. Okay, to answer your question, in short, how do you know your program implement correctly? It's just you have to see if your program inside your constructor, you will update value about that, and then inside the constructor you print the value about whether how many objects you have. So in the test program, you will count that how many person has been created, how many person object have. I'm using person as an example, but you can do the same thing for transaction as well. And then you add a few lines about creating person A, person B, person C, and then see if that value goes up with that. And if you saw that value goes up correctly, then you know you have to implement correctly. What I can do with a TA is providing a test program for you to also test that perspective. So we will check the correctness by the hand in. You're going to hand in your transaction CPP and person CPP. So we will look at the code and integrate it with our test program to see if you actually done it correctly. but we can actually release the test program for you to test it to see if that looks okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be really helpful if we
Okay.
could test it.
All right, I'll try to get it done today or tomorrow. Okay. No problem. Okay, any other question? So you can stay here, and what I'm going to do is I will just doing some course management, and I think I will stop recording, and unless you have a question, then I will start recording again. Okay. Let me see. Stop recording.